Odi was a quiet town surrounded by mangroves and the wide Niger River. The people were mostly Ijaw, proud and peaceful. They lived close to nature. The air smelled of salt, fish, and wet earth. Each morning, the town woke to the sound of paddling canoes and crowing roosters. Tamuno was one of the many young men who loved the river. At 21, he was strong, tall, and full of dreams. He lived in a small mud house with his mother, Mama Seki, and his little sister, Ebiere, who was just 10. Their father had died in a boat accident many years before. Tamuno loved to fish. He believed the river was alive and had a spirit. He often said, "The river feeds us. We must respect her." But over the years, the river had started to die. Oil spills from the big companies blackened the waters. Gas flares lit up the night skies like fireflies from hell. Fish became hard to find. Tamuno's nets came up empty more often. Still, the people of Odi tried to live in peace. They farmed, fished, traded, and prayed. Life was not easy, but they had each other. Not everyone could accept the suffering quietly. Some of the young men in the Delta joined armed groups. They were angry that the oil from their land made others rich while their people stayed poor. They wanted justice. Some fought with guns. They kidnapped oil workers, attacked pipelines, and demanded money from companies. One day, Tamuno met an old friend, Fagor, who had joined one of these militant groups. "You are still fishing?" Fagor laughed bitterly. "That river is dead. The government doesn't care. You should come with us. We fight for our land." Tamuno shook his head. "Fighting brings more pain. I don't want my mother to bury another son." Fagor spat on the ground. "Then keep fishing your empty river." Not long after that, terrible news came. 12 policemen were ambushed and killed near Odi. No one knew exactly who did it. Some said it was the militants. Others believed it was a setup to justify an attack. But the government pointed fingers at Odi. Tension filled the air. Rumors spread fast. People whispered about soldiers coming. The town elders wrote letters to the government in Port Harcourt and Abuja, begging for time to find the killers or prove their innocence. But the answer came, not in words, but in boots and bullets. On November 20th, 1999, the Nigerian army arrived in Odi. Trucks, tanks, and helicopters surrounded the town. Loudspeakers shouted orders no one could understand. People were told to leave their homes and surrender the killers. But how could they give up what they did not have? Tamuno stood outside his house, holding Ebiere's hand. Mama Seki packed food and told them to stay close. "Do not run far, just into the bush. We will return by evening." But they didn't return that evening, because the soldiers opened fire. The attack began with the sound of gunshots and explosions. Bullets flew through walls. Homes were burned to the ground. The church where people ran for safety collapsed in flames. The palace of the king was destroyed. No one was safe. Tamuno, Ebiere, and Mama Seki ran into the forest with many others. They hid under wet leaves and listened as their town was turned to ashes. For 3 days, the soldiers stayed. They shot at anyone who moved. They burned almost every house. The air smelled of death and smoke. Even animals fled. In the forest, Tamuno found a small stream. He scooped water with his hands and gave it to his mother and sister. They had no food, no shelter, only fear. On the 3rd day, Tamuno crept back to the edge of the town. What he saw made his legs weak. Odi was gone. The market, the school, the churches, all had been burned. The streets were full of silence and bodies. After the soldiers left, survivors returned to what remained. Some found the bodies of their loved ones. Others never found them at all. The land was empty and blackened. Graves were dug in a hurry. Tamuno found their house in ruins. The fishing net his father gave him was burned. Mama Seki sat in the ashes, her eyes empty. Ebiere refused to speak for days. "I will rebuild," Tamuno said. "We must live. We must not die with the town." They built a small shelter from bamboo and palm leaves. Others did the same. People shared food, stories, and tears. For years, the people of Odi cried for justice. Activists and lawyers took their case to court. Governments came and went, but no one was punished. It was only in 2013, 14 years later, that a court ordered the Nigerian government to pay 37.6 billion naira as compensation. Some money was paid, but many felt it could never replace what was lost. Tamuno did not care about money. He had already lost too much. But he believed the story must not be forgotten. He became a teacher in the new school. He taught history, not just the kind found in books, but the one that lived in his bones. Every year, on November 20th, the people of Odi gathered to remember. They sang songs of mourning. They lit candles. They told the children, this is why we must speak, so that it does not happen again. One morning, many years later, Tamuno took Ebiere, now a young woman, to the river. The water was still dark in some parts, but it moved with life. Do you remember? He asked. Ebiere nodded. I remember the fire, but I also remember your voice, telling me we would survive. They sat in the canoe and watched the sunrise. The river still flows, Tamuno said quietly, and so do we.